This happened just a few weeks ago. I'm 35, a freelance photographer, and I had lost my job. I thought the Appalachian Mountains would be a good place to find some inspiration. I'd read about abandoned cabins and wanted to capture their beauty. I had no idea what I was about to face. I've never stopped thinking about it. I set up camp that evening. It was quiet, just me and the trees. The sun set behind the mountains and darkness crept in. That's when I heard it. Soft tapping sounds from one of the cabins nearby. My first thought was falling branches, but something felt off. I think a chill ran through me, but maybe it was just the cool night air. I shook my head, grabbed my flashlight, and walked toward the noise. The door was slightly open when I got there. I hesitated. My heart raced, but I told myself it was nothing. I pushed the door open more. It creaked loudly, and that froze me in place. The air felt different, heavier. I shone my light inside. The cabin was dark, but I could see old furniture covered in dust. I stepped in, and the floorboards creaked under my weight. The tapping stopped. I glanced around but saw nothing. My gut told me to leave, but my curiosity held me there. I wandered deeper into the cabin, and that's when I heard laughter. It echoed softly, like it came from far away. A knot formed in my stomach. Was someone playing a trick on me? My back grew cold with sweat. Shadows moved in my peripheral vision, but I didn't see anything. I felt like I wasn't alone. I backed out slowly, my heart hammering. As I stepped outside, I noticed old photographs scattered on the ground. I leaned down to pick one up and froze. The faces looked familiar, but I couldn't place them. I dropped it, confused by some strange connection I felt. I glanced back at the cabin. It stood silent now, but in dim light, I could have sworn I saw someone staring at me through the window. I stumbled back. My heart was pounding and my breath caught in my throat. Everything felt wrong and I didn't know why. Was it just my mind? Or was I losing touch with reality out there? Then I heard a whisper. "Why are you here?" I whipped around and there was nobody behind me. I turned back to the cabin. Just darkness. Something there felt left behind, and I couldn't shake the feeling. I needed to get away. The air felt thick, almost alive, as if the woods were watching me. I grabbed my gear and started toward my campsite. I kept looking back, half hoping to see something, half hoping I wouldn't. The laughter echoed in my mind, and the whisper replayed. What was happening? I could feel the weight of eyes on me, even when the trees stood still. That was a night I would never forget. What really happened that night in the Appalachian woods? The next day, light filtered through the leaves, but the night still clung to me. I barely slept, haunted by laughter and whispers. I needed to shake off the shadows clinging to my thoughts. I decided to explore another cabin further up the trail, hoping to find something that could explain what I experienced. As I hiked, the woods felt different in the daylight. The trees stood tall and proud, but their shadows felt ominous. I pushed the feeling aside and focused on my camera. I wanted to capture the beauty of the Appalachians, not the fear I had felt the night before. When I reached the second cabin, I noticed it was in better shape. The door hung on its hinges, and sunlight streamed through a shattered window. I stepped in, curiosity outweighing my apprehension. The interior looked relatively untouched. Dust motes floated in the air. I could feel a presence here too, but it felt different, less eerie, more inviting. I took a few photos, adjusting the angles to catch the light just right. After a while, I noticed a staircase leading to an upper floor. I hesitated. Should I go up? My heart whispered warnings, but I was drawn to the unknown. I climbed the creaking steps, my pulse steadying with each step. At the top, I found a small loft with old furniture covered in linens. Sunlight poured in, brightening the room. But my heart dropped when I saw a framed photo on a dusty dresser. It showed a family smiling, the same faces as the ones in the photo I found at the first cabin. The resemblance was uncanny. I turned the frame over. There was a name scrawled in pencil. The Hargrove family. My mind raced. Was this just coincidence? Instinctively, I pulled out my phone and started searching for any information about them. As the screen loaded, I heard rustling behind me. I spun around, but nothing was there. I returned to my search. The brief silence was shattered by the door slamming shut. My heart raced again, and I rushed to the stairs. I tugged at the door, but it wouldn't budge. Panic surged through me, and I pushed harder until it gave way. I stumbled back out, gasping. Then I heard it again, the laughter. It echoed wildly, bouncing off the walls of the cabin. I looked around, wild-eyed, searching for the source. It felt closer this time, almost as if it were in the very fibers of the air around me. I ran outside, but something caught my eye. In the backyard there was a small graveyard, headstones barely visible through the underbrush. My breath caught in my throat. My pulse thundered in my ears. That's when I saw it, a figure in the distance, standing still among the trees. It was a person, but their features were obscured. I took a step back, hesitating. Just like before, everything inside me screamed to turn and leave, but a part of me wanted to know. Then, as if sensing me, the figure turned. I couldn't make out a face, but I could feel their gaze. I backed away slowly, my instincts firing alarms. Whatever presence lingered in the woods didn't welcome me. With every ounce of courage, I tore myself away from the sight and fled. The laughter echoed behind me, mingling with the rustling leaves. I didn't stop running until I reached my campsite. My mind raced. Who were the Hargroves? Why was there a graveyard? What did it all mean? I had come looking for inspiration, but I had opened a door I wasn't ready to walk through. As I collapsed by my tent, I glanced back toward the cabins. There was still something there waiting for me, and I didn't know if I could resist it any longer. I barely got an hour of sleep that night, my mind a whirlpool of confusion. The laughter still echoed in my ears, mingling with the image of that lurking figure. I tried to distract myself with thoughts of my photography, but nothing could shake the feeling that my presence there was unwelcome. The next morning I made a plan. If I couldn't face what I had seen, maybe I could find answers about the Hargrove family instead. I grabbed my notebook and a pen, determined to document everything I could remember about the cabins and my experiences, hoping it might help clarify what I had witnessed. After breakfast, unease wrapped around me like a second skin. I decided to visit the local library, which I had seen on my drive-in. The town wasn't far, and I figured I might find a record of the Hargrove family, or at least some history about the cabins. The library was small, dusty, and surprisingly quiet. I approached the librarian with a polite smile, but nerves prickled at the back of my mind. I inquired about any records or information about the cabins and the families who once lived there. The librarian frowned, her eyes narrowing. "What do you want to know for?" she asked, her tone cautious. "I'm just interested in local history," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "It's not much of a story," she said, glancing around as if expecting someone to walk in. "The Hargroves left decades ago, mysteriously, some say." "Why mysteriously?" I pressed. She hesitated, looking down at her desk. "They were different, kept to themselves. And then one winter they just disappeared." Curiosity ignited. Disappeared, like vanished? "Yes. The cabins were left behind, untouched. Rumors spread after that." Her voice lowered. "Some believed they were cursed." My stomach dropped. "Cursed? What do you mean?" "It's just talk," she quickly added, but I could tell she felt uneasy. "People say strange things happen in those woods. Only the brave or the foolish venture up there alone." I couldn't help but think of my own foolishness. I thanked her and moved to the dusty archives. The scent of old paper filled the air, and I pulled out thick binders filled with yellowed clippings. I flipped through articles, hoping for something concrete, anything substantial. And then I found it. a faded newspaper clipping from 50 years ago. Its headline read, "Hargrove family mysteriously vanishes during winter storm." The article detailed how the family was last seen at New Year's gatherings with neighbors, laughing and celebrating. A few weeks later, their absence was noted when the usual festivities never returned. But what struck me was the last line. Locals report strange noises and sightings in the woods. Some believe the spirits of the Hargrove family linger. The hairs on my arms stood up, and a chill raced down my spine. I turned the page, but the next entry was blank. I looked up, my heart pounding. The librarian was watching me, her eyes wide. "You should leave those alone," she said. "Sometimes digging brings forth things best left buried." I took a step back, feeling the weight of her words sink in. The woods had secrets, and I wasn't prepared for what I might uncover. As I left the library, the laughter whispered again in the distance, a taunting reminder of what waited for me. Making my way back to camp, I knew I couldn't ignore the pull of the woods any longer. There was something waiting for me, and I had to confront it. Whatever haunted the Hargrove family might still be there, and I had to know the truth. Then, in the distance, I spotted something moving through the trees. I froze, my breath hitching in my throat. I wasn't alone anymore. I should have turned back, but curiosity held me captive. The figure moved between the trees, almost gliding. I squinted, trying to make out any feature, but it was no use. The shadows cloaked whatever was there. My heart raced. I took a step forward, the leaves crunching beneath my feet startling me. Whatever it was paused, then it darted deeper into the woods. I hesitated, conflict surging through me. The report from the librarian echoed in my mind. Only the brave or the foolish venture up there alone. My instincts screamed for me to retreat, but I pressed on. As I crept further into the woods, the air thickened around me. Sounds of nature faded, replaced by an unsettling silence. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Each snap of a twig felt like a warning. I fought the urge to call out, to scream at the figure, but fear gripped me. Minutes felt like hours as I carved a path deeper into the trees. The sunlight filtered through the branches, creating flickering patterns on the forest floor. That's when I saw it. A cabin. It stood decrepit and tilted to one side, much like the photographs I'd seen at the library. I approached cautiously, my camera ready. The door hung slightly ajar, inviting me in. Swallowing hard, I took a step closer. The silence felt oppressive. Something compelled me to push the door open. It creaked loudly, echoing in the stillness. Inside, webs clung to the corners like forgotten memories. Dust motes danced in the shafts of light spilling through the broken windows. I raised my camera, snapping pictures of the interior, hoping to capture something that might reveal the past. But the stillness wrapped around me tighter, making it hard to breathe. Then I heard it. A soft giggle, barely a whisper echoing in the empty room. My heart stopped. I wasn't alone. I turned my head sharply, scanning the corners. Shadows flickered just beyond my line of sight. "Hello?" I called, my voice trembling. Silence responded. I steeled myself and took a step further inside. As I rounded a corner, I noticed a small figure standing at the far end of the room, partially concealed in darkness. A girl, no older than 10, her dress tattered and her hair tangled. Her eyes were wide, almost glowing. "Help me," she whispered. Panic surged through me. I wanted to run, but I was rooted in place. "Where are your parents?" I asked, forcing my voice to stay calm. She pointed toward the back of the cabin, and I could see a door marked by splintered wood. "They went away," the girl said, her head tilting unnaturally. "You have to follow." Suddenly, I felt a pull, as if unseen hands were wrapping around me. The laughter echoed in my ears, blending with the girl's chilling words. I backed away, my mind racing. Who was she? What had happened here? Then everything shifted. The door slammed shut, trapping me inside. I spun around, my heart hammering in my chest. I wasn't just digging through the past. I was part of something far more sinister. In that moment of panic, the girl laughed again, a sound that sent a cold shiver down my spine. I realized I had to escape, and fast. But where? That's when darkness enveloped the cabin, and I knew whatever secrets lay hidden here were no longer buried. The darkness thickened, wrapping around me like an old, familiar cloak. I pressed my back against the cold wooden wall, my heart pounding. The girl's laughter echoed in my head, creating a sinister rhythm. I needed to see. I needed to find a way out. I fumbled for my camera, hoping the flash would pierce the suffocating black. My hands shook as I clicked the button. The sudden burst of light illuminated the room. For a moment, everything was stark and clear, the dust particles floating like tiny stars. But the girl was gone. "Where are you?" I shouted, my voice a mixture of fear and desperation. It felt absurd to call out, as if I was speaking to the night itself. Silence greeted me once more. I took a cautious step forward, trying to push down the rising panic. My eyes adjusted to the dim light, revealing more of the cabin's interior. Old furniture lay strewn about, broken chairs, a shattered table, remnants of a life abandoned. My gaze landed on the door she had pointed to earlier. Perhaps there was something or someone behind it. I approached slowly, each creaky floorboard halting my breath. The snags of fear gripped my throat. I reached for the doorknob. My fingers brushed against the rough wood, and I hesitated. What if the girl was right? What if this led to her parents or something worse? But I had come this far. I twisted the knob, and the door swung open with a heavy groan. I was met with an equally darkened room. A staircase spiraled downward, engulfed by shadows. An urge to run warred with my curiosity. Just as I made up my mind to descend, a sharp, cold gust of wind swept through, and the door slammed shut behind me. My pulse quickened. Panic gripped me again as I tried to push it open, but it wouldn't budge. I was trapped. "Help me." The girl's voice echoed from below, soft yet haunting. I leaned closer, straining to hear. "You have to trust me. They won't let you go unless—" My skin crawled. Who were they? I felt that pull again, as if the very air around me was urging me to follow her down. I had no choice. I took a deep breath, steeling myself, and stepped onto the first step of the staircase. The air grew colder as I descended, and I felt a presence, something watching. Shadows curled against the walls, flickering like flames in my periphery. I whispered a shaky, "Hello?" but no one answered. The girl's soft giggling floated upward. I reached the bottom of the stairs, finding a dimly lit room draped in dust and forgotten memories. Furniture was shrouded with white sheets like ghosts from the past. But the sight of the girl was not the only thing that pierced the silence. A faint glow emanated from a cracked mirror on the far wall. I approached slowly, the floor quiet beneath my feet. My reflection stared back, but the room around me shimmered. Shapes danced in the corners, flickering just beyond my view. Fear mingled with fascination as I took another step, drawn toward the mirror. That's when I noticed the girl's reflection beside me, a sly grin on her face. Then, with a sudden jolt, the mirror rippled, as if something was pushing against it from behind. My instincts screamed at me to flee, but I stood frozen. I had to know something was in that mirror, but was it what I feared most, or something that would unlock the truth? As I stepped closer to the mirror, the air thickened. The reflection wavered, and I wondered if I was seeing things. The girl's figure looked clearer now, her eyes wide with an unsettling mix of excitement and fear. "You're not like the others," she whispered, her voice barely above her breath. "You can help us." Help you? I repeated, my mind racing. Who were these people she referred to? What do you mean? The mirror pulsed again, shifting like water disturbed by a pebble. I caught a glimpse of shadowy figures within, blurred faces that seemed to reach out in silent pleas. My heart raced as the chill in the air deepened. Something about the reflection felt alive, throbbing with urgency. They can't see you, but they can feel you, the girl said, her grin fading into a serious frown. They're waiting. You must find the truth before it's too late, or you'll be trapped here forever. A heavy weight settled in my stomach. I glanced back at the staircase, feeling the pull to flee, but the face in the mirror caught my gaze again. There was something desperate in those shadowy figures. What if they had been waiting for help all along? Please, get closer. The girl's tone shifted, becoming more insistent. You need to look deeper. I stepped forward, my breath hitching. I held my camera against the mirror's surface, bracing myself. The flash popped again, and the realization hit me like a tidal wave. Instead of illuminating my surroundings, it revealed a dark hallway behind the girl's reflection. I leaned in, my mind racing. The hallway was narrow and shrouded in shadows, but I could make out a door at the far end. The girl's face brightened, excitement flooding her features. There. That's where you need to go. You have to open that door. Panic again threatened to rise. Open a door? To what? I took a shaky breath. What's behind it? Truth, she replied, her voice echoing like a chant. But someone will try to stop you. I backed away from the mirror, my instincts clashing with my curiosity. Who? What are you talking about? But she fell silent, her features fading behind the rippling glass. Suddenly, the light in the room flickered violently. The shadows around me roared to life, darting toward me. A low growl reverberated through the air, sending a jolt of terror through my body. I turned to flee, the staircase looming behind me, but I couldn't shake the girl's words. You're not like the others. Just as I was about to bolt, a flicker of movement caught my eye in the hallway of the mirror. A figure emerged, its shape human but twisted. Everything went dark. The mirror shattered, and with it, my last link to the girl. I was no longer sure if I was running from danger or stepping into it. My heart thundered as I stumbled toward the stairs, the growling sound growing closer. But now, I had no choice. I had to confront whatever awaited me at that door. I was already too far in. As I reached the first step, something gripped my ankle from behind, anchoring me in place. And I knew then, I was not alone. I felt the icy fingers grip my ankle, tightening like a vice. Panic surged through me, flooding my veins. I swiveled around, my heart racing, but found only darkness. The growling intensified. It was the kind of deep sound that echoed in my bones and twisted my insides. With all my strength, I kicked at the unseen force, and the grip loosened just enough for me to break free. I stumbled forward, nearly losing my balance. The staircase loomed behind me, the shadows clawing up the walls, hungry and relentless. But there was a part of me that couldn't leave. Not yet. I hesitated, torn. I could either run and escape, or I could try to understand what was happening. The girl's desperate eyes flickered in my mind. I had to discover the truth behind the door in the mirror. Resolutely, I turned back toward the shards of glass, scattered on the floor, still vibrating with raw energy. Just as I knelt to examine the largest piece, the growling ceased abruptly. The silence was deafening, unsettling. I glanced around, trying to sense what was coming next. Then I spotted it. Among the shards, a glimmer caught my eye. I reached out, and a piece of the mirror reflected faint light. It was blurry, like someone moving behind it. I leaned in closer, searching for any hint of the girl or the hallway she had shown me. That's when I saw it. A flicker of movement. The door. It stood there, slightly ajar, bathed in an eerie glow. As I focused harder, I realized the door was the same one the girl had indicated. Excitement fluttered in my chest. "Go to it," I murmured to myself, feeling a surreal sense of purpose. I stood and jogged toward the shattered frame of what used to be my window to another world. Just as I reached out, the shadows resumed their growl, vibrating around me. "Enough!" I shouted, my voice shaking with both fear and determination. I stepped over the shards littering the floor and pushed through the threshold where the mirror had once stood. The moment I crossed over, the air shifted. The space felt heavier, thick with anticipation. I was in the hallway. It was dark. The only source of light came from the glowing door at the end. I could almost feel the weight of those shadowy figures behind me, and I quickly turned back. They were gone, but something still lurked in the dark corners, waiting. In front of me the door stood out, illuminated yet foreboding. I approached slowly, each step echoing in the silence. As I reached for the handle, the soft whisper of the girl returned to my mind. "Someone will try to stop you." I hesitated, uncertainty flooding me again. What if it wasn't safe? What if the truth was something I couldn't handle? But just then, a cold wind rushed past me, abruptly extinguishing the light from behind. A sinister laugh echoed through the darkness. I froze in place. Something was coming. I felt a chill creep up my spine, paralyzing me for a moment. The laughter faded, but I could still feel its presence looming in the shadows. I took a shaky breath and tried to focus on the door ahead. What lay beyond it? I reached for the handle, my hand trembling. Just as I brushed it, the door swung open slightly. A gust of warm air rushed out, carrying with it faint whispers. They were soft, pleading, and filled with a desperation that tugged at my heart. "Help me," one voice murmured, ethereal and haunting. "Come inside," another beckoned, urgency coated in fear. I stood there, caught between the shadows and the glowing portal. The girl's desperate eyes flashed in my memory. This was her chance. The darkness behind me shifted, moving closer with a quickening pace. I couldn't wait. I pushed the door fully open and stepped inside. The room was different from the hallway. It was bathed in an unnatural light, illuminating cracked walls and faded wallpaper. In one corner, a small table held a single candle flickering with a life of its own. The air was thick with the scent of something sweet, but decayed. The atmosphere felt charged, almost alive. "Where are you?" I called out, my voice steadying as I took a step further inside. But the only answer was the waxing hum under my skin, a sign that I had crossed into danger. The girl's figure suddenly manifested in front of me, translucent and trembling. Her eyes were wide, filled with dread. "You shouldn't have come here," she whispered. "Was it you I heard?" I asked, desperate for answers. "What's happening?" Her gaze flickered over my shoulder. "They will come for you. They don't want you here." Panic surged again. I glanced back toward the door, now just a frame of solid darkness. Movement shifted in the shadows there. Whatever was behind me was close. "Who are they?" I pressed, stepping toward her, trying to keep my voice calm. She shook her head, wisps of her form flaking away as if the light was too much for her. "They want to keep me, to keep you. You're connected." "What do you mean?" I felt the weight of confusion press down on me like a lead blanket. "How am I connected to you?" But her attention was pulled away, and I followed her gaze. The shadows on the floor began to swirl, dark shapes forming into distinct figures. They slinked toward me, their shapes indistinguishable but their malice tangible. "Run!" she cried. And just like that, the looming darkness exploded into movement. I pivoted, heart pounding, lungs burning, and raced toward the glowing light of the door. But I was too slow. One of the figures lunged, cold fingers wrapping around my wrist. I gasped, struggling against the creature's grip. The girl screamed and her figure flickered in panic. I could feel the shadows pulling me back, dragging me toward something unknown. "No, not again," I yelled as I kicked at the creature, barely breaking free. I stumbled, teetering on the edge of the threshold. The glow from the door pulsed like a heartbeat, urging me forward. Then the girl called out, her voice piercing through the noise. "Find the key, it's in the mirror." And with that, I surged through the doorway just before everything fell into darkness, leaving me breathless and uncertain on the other side. I was back in my room, the weight of the shadows pressing against my walls. But something felt different now, different and urgent. I needed to act, and I needed to find that key, or whatever the girl meant, before the darkness came for me again. The next morning, I stared at the mirror over my dresser. It looked ordinary enough, reflecting the bright sunlight spilling into my room. But the girl's warning echoed in my mind. "It's in the mirror." I leaned closer, my breath fogging the glass. Had I missed something? I raked my eyes over every inch, expecting to see a shimmer or a glimmer. Just plain reflection. I was about to walk away when something flickered at the edge of my vision. I squinted and leaned in again. Then I saw it. A small keyhole, barely visible, hidden in the ornate frame. My pulse quickened. I ran my fingers over the rim, searching for something to unlock it. The weight of the world hung on that small piece of metal. I took a step back. "Okay, think," I muttered to myself. I had no key, but I needed to find one fast. Whatever was behind me last night was still searching for me. I could feel it in the back of my mind. The shadows that had grasped my wrist couldn't be far. In my gut I felt it, a pull toward the staircase leading down to the basement. I moved cautiously, each step laden with dread. The upstairs was flooded with light, but the basement was steeped in darkness. It felt as if it breathed, each inhale tighter than the last. As I reached the bottom, the air shifted. A cold draft brushed against my neck. I couldn't see much, but the faint outline of old furniture and boxes loomed like specters. I wasn't sure if I was ready for what lay hidden down here, but something urged me on. My hand brushed over stacks of yellowed books and dusty picture frames. "Come on, there has to be something." I said more to push back the fear than to seek comfort. I pulled open a chest. It creaked ominously as I rummaged through its contents. Old clothes, brittle newspaper clippings. Nothing stood out. Nothing helped. I slammed it shut in frustration. That's when I noticed a glint under a pile of stacked boxes. Curious, I shifted them aside and found a dusty, ornate box perched precariously. My heart raced. Was this it? I opened it carefully, revealing a small, beautiful key resting on the velvet interior. It shimmered despite the dust, as if waiting for me. I snatched it, cradling it like a fragile secret. "This has to work," I whispered, returning to the stairs. The oppressive atmosphere followed me, whispering reminders of the unknown that lurked just beyond my walls. Once back in my room, I faced the mirror again. The key felt heavy in my palm. I slid it into the keyhole. As I turned it, the mirror shimmered and warped as if a veil of water had been disturbed. My breath hitched. I couldn't pull back now. There was a bright flash and the mirror rippled. I pressed forward, but just as I did, the whispers surged around me. "You shouldn't have come here," echoed behind me like a thunderous warning. I was trapped between two realms now. With a nervous glance over my shoulder, I prepared to step through, feeling the cold presence of the shadows inch closer. I had to unveil the truth of what I had stumbled into. As the mirror engulfed me, I felt a sense of urgency. The girl's face materialized in my mind. "You're connected," she had said. But connected to what? Then everything went dark again. The moment I crossed through the surface of the mirror, I found myself enveloped in a void, a disorienting darkness that constricted like a living thing. My heart raced as I strained to grasp my surroundings. Gradually, shapes began to coalesce around me, and I felt a pull, urging me forward, deeper into the unknown. The darkness rippled and warped, shifting into the familiar outline of what appeared to be the cabin I had been drawn to before. This time, however, there was a vibrancy to the air, a hum that promised both danger and revelation. I felt the weight of the shadows surrounding me, and in the periphery I could almost make out figures, the same shadowy forms that had haunted my dreams. "Please, come find us." A chorus of whispers beckoned, hinting at a desperate urgency that sent chills down my spine. Their tone was both inviting and foreboding. "Who are you?" I shouted against the encroaching darkness, my voice echoing wildly. But the only reply was the undulating whispers that twisted through the room. I stumbled forward, searching diligently. I remembered the girl's words. "They're waiting. You must find the truth before it's too late." I had to discover what fate had entwined my existence with the Hargrove family, and why the girl had insisted I was different. In the center of the cabin, an old wooden table caught my attention. Upon it lay photographs, the faces of the Hargrove family gazing up at me with expressions of joy and festivity, contrasting sharply against the hushed shadows that prowled the corners of the room. My breath hitching, I recognized those faces from the photos I had discovered in that first cabin. I reached out tentatively, feeling a magnetic pull towards them. Just then, a frigid gust of air blasted through the room, extinguishing my resolve. The shadows coalesced, forming a figure that hovered ominously near the doorway. I steeled myself, my mind racing for a plan of escape. "What do you want?" I demanded, my voice trembling only slightly. "Leave," the figure hissed, its voice a harsh whisper that dug into my mind. "You have no business here." But I wasn't ready to turn back. "I'm trying to help," I cried, hoping to appeal to whatever remnants of humanity lay within the shadow's form. "I want to understand what happened to you. What happened to the Hargrove family?" At those words, the dark figure faltered. In that flicker of hesitation, I saw a glimmer of the girl from before. She hadn't faded. She was here, wrapped in the shadows just like the others. A tortured gaze met my eyes before the figure surged forward, the shadows swirling around me. "No!" I yelled, feeling their icy grip tightening around my core. Panic surged as I fought against the chilling embrace, searching for a stance, for any lingering step toward freedom. I latched onto the images of the family, how they had laughed and celebrated life, suddenly aware that their joy felt like a distant echo, overshadowed by the darkness that surrounded me. "You don't have to be trapped here," I pleaded, not knowing if my words held any significance. "There has to be a way to break free." And just like that, the environment shifted. The room began to whir like a carousel, distorting the photographs and the figures into swirling hues of sadness and anger. Fear flooded through me, but something shifted within those towering shadows. A glimmer of connection, of understanding. "Please," I whispered, tears finally spilling from my eyes. "Help me find the key to set you all free." Silence enveloped me as the shadows quivered, then slowly pulled back ever so slightly. I could see the girl hovering near the edge of darkness, her small form more pronounced. For a fleeting moment, she reached out to me, ethereal fingers stretching toward the flicker of light reclaiming the room. "Find it all," she urged, "before time swallows us whole." In that moment, scrambling past my fear, I focused on the fragments. The photographs, the laughter, the echoes of a life that once thrived here. My heart pounded in rhythm with the spirit of the girl, the urgency palpable as the shadows rattled like a storm, ready to unleash its fury. With newfound determination, I turned back towards the doorway, my body moving almost instinctively toward the mirror. Whatever I had learned, whatever answers rested within the complexities of the past, it had to be explored through the very source of the darkness that now tried to choke the light from my soul. I found myself on the cusp of freedom, heart racing as I placed a trembling hand against the cracked surface of the mirror. Echoes of laughter sparked in my mind, a melody urging me forward as I felt the connection deepen. I knew I had to confront whatever lay within and unearth the light buried in the murky depths. But the shadows wouldn't let me go easily. They lunged, snapping fiercely at my heels. I braced myself as I surged through the mirror's surface, hoping against hope that I could uncover the truth and bring closure to the shadows entwined with the Hargrove family, as well as my own. The mirror flickered, pulsing abominably under my touch, and in the chaos I saw myself reflected. I felt a tug, foreboding yet vibrantly filled with energy, and I knew that I stood on the precipice of the unknown. What awaited me beyond this threshold was still bound within the layers of light and shadow, the air thrumming with supernatural potential. Questions loomed, threats revealed, and the wisps of the past intertwined with my fate. But as I propelled myself into the uncertainty, I felt one certainty. I would unlock the truth. It wouldn't come without its own sacrifice, but perhaps, just perhaps, I could bring light where there had only been darkness for long too many years. And then, everything went white.